the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
This is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Greetings and welcome to this episode of AVNation TV's Connected. I'm your host, David Danto. And we've got a different, I think, very interesting show this week. It dawned on me over the last couple of weeks, obviously tracking all of the things that are going on in the UC industry and with the pandemic happening, that, we're hearing a lot about Zoom and we're hearing a lot about Microsoft Teams. And in fact, we should be, because they're giants and they're fabulous and they've really come through. But it made me think about a commercial that I used to see on TV when I was growing up from the tire company BF Goodrich, when the guy looked up at the sky and said, "Oh, you see up there, look at the blimp, we're the other guys." There's got to be other guys. In fact, I know there are dozens of other guys in the collaboration industry that have platforms that are in the same space as the bigger players, that have some real key and interesting differentiators. So this episode is going to be devoted to three of them. When I speak with Mark Richer from Starleaf, and I speak with Krish Ramakrishnan from Blue Jeans, which is now part of Verizon, and I speak with Mark Strassman, who's with LogMe and GoToMeeting. And I think they had some very interesting comments. They've done a lot of good things for the community, and I think it'll be great for you to hear their perspective and understand what they're doing specifically. So let's take it away with the first one. So I'm pleased to be joined right now by Mark Richer, who is the head of Starleaf, an organization that's been around for a very long time. Originally was making hardware and other pieces for collaboration in a very innovative model, and has now kind of moved on to being more of a platform. But let me let Mark introduce himself and give us a little bit of the history of his company and what he's doing now. So hi, Mark, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, David. Thank you very much for inviting me to here on AVNation.
So tell us a little bit about, I know I believe you were with Starleaf at the beginning and then you had left for a while and now you're back again. So tell us a little bit about what the genesis was, where it came from, and what you guys are doing today.
Very fair. Well, I was one of the founders of Starleaf, and for most of its time I was the chairman. And just recently, about 18 months ago, I took over as CEO. So that's my personal history with the company.
Okay.
So we started out Starleaf with a view that video conferencing didn't need to be as complicated as it was 10 years ago, and that was really always been our mission. It's been our passion to create a system which is usable by everybody, and that led us through a journey. And the first real part of that puzzle that we put together was a cloud solution, and in fact, really, we're pretty much the first with a video cloud, and we've moved on from that now that started first with support for meeting rooms with our own hardware. Then we added on to that software applications, of course, to run on your PC or your mobile. And then the latest version of that is now to have gone on to add support for third-party devices, so both for Windows PCs and also for the range of Poly endpoints, the X30, X50, and 7500.
That's great. And I remember, you and I have been in this industry for a very long time. I remember how rancorous the concept of interoperability was for a very long time, and actually you might argue still is. I remember that your cloud was interoperable with services that were upset that you were doing it for a while. Without mentioning any names, they said, "Well, how dare they provide interoperability to our service?" And I remember you guys are one of the first ones to say, "Look, we want this conferencing and collaboration to be easy. We want to be able to connect to anybody, and there shouldn't be these walled gardens that are out there." So what was your take on that? I mean, I believe it was just the idea of supporting your customers and making sure that collaboration was easy, right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I mean, the cloud that we've evolved to become really is a cloud solution that provides messaging, meetings, and calling for businesses. That's our objective, and within that, then it's critical for the businesses that we have as customers to be able to call other businesses, to really be able to call anybody they want. And so it goes hand in hand with that, I think, to provide interoperability. That's really never been so necessary, I think, in the consumer space. Consumer Skype or WhatsApp or WeChat, none of them have ever really paid much attention, maybe any attention at all, to interoperability. But I think that's because, in essence, their customers are consumers. At Starleaf, of course, our customers are businesses, and there you can't dictate to other people, your customers or suppliers, what communications platform to use, and so they've got their own choices. And so it's only sensible, insofar as possible, to let people communicate with other people's systems. Now, it's interesting that actually, although there were many issues of usability in business video 10 years ago with what was then really, essentially Polycom and Hamburg, there were many usability issues. In fact, interoperability was actually in a very good place overall, because essentially the platforms communicated using a series of standard protocols. What's interesting today is that we now have more and more essentially in interoperable solutions, or solutions which are almost hostile to it. And that's sort of interesting, really. And for me personally, on a personal level, a shame. I came into the communications business to make things talk to each other, and it's always disappointing when you find people who come to the communications business to stop things talking to each other.
Yeah, it's definitely not one of the proudest moments that our industry had, that so many people were using that as an opportunity to try and maintain a market edge, as opposed to letting other people in. And of course, everybody was saying they were using a standard, but they were using their own standard, whichever one they wanted. So it was definitely not a comfortable piece for a long time. And we do appreciate what your firm did in being able to, enable that interoperability for businesses around the world. So we have to talk about, the 800-pound gorilla in the room. We're living through one of the most horrific pandemic of my lifetime, certainly. I call it the horrible perfect storm, in that, obviously there's been tremendous devastation and loss of life and misery, and things that are out of our control. But what we've been talking about regarding remote collaboration, video conferencing, these type of tools and how functional they are, we finally have been able to get over the hump of the stigma of the remote worker being lazy. Because there was no other choice for knowledge workers, they've been using this platform, and ultimately and again, there's still an issue with privilege, but with widely available broadband and widely available collaboration tools, we've now proven that this type of communication methodology is actually very functional, and is going to probably change the nature of individual workers for business for a long time. What have your customers, what have you been seeing from that perspective?
Yes, I mean all of that, David, as you'd expect during the real pandemic push in March of this year, we saw about a ×6 to ×10 increase in the use of our system in about a 2-week period, which was just absolutely insane. So yes, I mean, huge increase in usage, and as you say, I think very effective usage too. I think people have indeed found working remotely, using video, using voice, using messaging to be very effective. And that really is, without a shadow of doubt, a great thing. Sometimes I think to myself, well, if the pandemic had been even just 20 years ago, what a different situation we would have had. How much more challenging would that have been for businesses to keep going? I mean, what would we really have been? It would all have been phones. At best, it would have been some fairly clunky phone conference calls. Maybe some email if you were lucky, but it would have been slow, and God help you if you tried to send an attachment. So I think, just as a thought experiment, that's it just shows you how far we've come in a short period of time.
Yeah, a conversation I've had with a couple of other industry people is, if it wasn't such a tragedy, it would be an amazing experiment to sit back and watch, because of all the things that have happened. And you can make the argument, or I make the argument frequently, I'd love to hear how you feel, that, UC and collaboration rose to the challenge here to really keep knowledge workers and businesses going, and other technologies that really could have or should have risen to the challenge just showed they weren't ready yet. Things like virtual reality and some other capabilities, which would have been awesome to be able to have that kind of experience. You just noticed that it wasn't ubiquitous enough, it wasn't standardized enough, there wasn't enough tools out there. So I mean, you get that same perspective that it had the opportunity to rise and it did.
I think I think that's very fair. I don't really myself know much about virtual reality as a space, but certainly it's certainly not fore and central here as our business is today. It's been fantastic, really. It's been very gratifying. The system, the cloud, the service that we set out to build, as I said right at the beginning, was about ease of use. It was about enabling people to communicate, for humans to communicate, and that we've delivered on that we have so many users happily working in such an intensive way. Really, is just fantastic. I think the model is great, and that combination of messaging, calling, and meetings interleaved in a seamless way, encapsulated in a straightforward interface that everybody can grasp. I think it's just turned out to be as powerful as we could possibly have hoped.
So I don't want to put you on the spot, but we were chatting before. I've spoken to a number of companies, a number of organizations in the UC space, and most of them have told me at least one or two stories about what they've been doing during the pandemic and how they've really reached out, whether it's a manufacturer, making products available to education or to healthcare, or a number of the integrators I've worked with, getting, huge deployments out or big ramp ups to support, healthcare and things like that. Do you have an anecdote like that you can talk about that Starleaf has stepped up and provided during the pandemic?
Sure, certainly. I think that the most obvious thing to point to really there is healthcare, which is indeed one of our key sectors that we support. And we've had healthcare customers all over the world in the United States, throughout Europe, and the UK, all of which we've obviously prioritized as key. As key customers for us. At one stage, we even, at the height of the pandemic, we even got a letter from the German Interior Ministry asking us to prioritize customer X because just in case we didn't know, they were a ventilator manufacturer. Oh
That's
my
great.
God. So it was a real, particularly when we had a very intense increase in the amounts of system usage, it was a really important thing, I think, to prioritize what we felt and what we're told were the most important sectors, and certainly healthcare was a very, very important part of that. That's sorry.
No, I was just saying, I assume your people, got a charge or a real good feeling out of the idea that not only were they doing their normal job, but they were actually helping the world during the crisis.
Yeah, I think that's true, and it's a bit back to that thought experiment I had a moment ago. If it wasn't for us here doing this, and I mean that in the broad sense as an industry, not just ourselves, but if we weren't here running these services, providing these facilities, then I think the world would be a damn sight harder top to bottom, and obviously health can't be part of that, but just across the board, I don't know how on earth we could have kept the world going to quite the degree. I mean, of course, the pandemic has still wreaked, huge problems and a lot of economic misery. That's undoubtedly the case, but I just can't figure how much worse it would have been if a whole bunch of people couldn't still stay productive, while looking after themselves and their loved ones and staying at home.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so the theme of this program, as you know, is the other guys, and we've talked about what that means before. For the viewers of this show, tell them why Starleaf is a different experience. What are your differentiators as opposed to everybody else that's out there?
That's very fair, David. Well, the way the world works so often nowadays is that central IT deploy hugely complex bits of software, and to be honest, they're very often Microsoft bits of software. They deploy really complicated bits of kit and by mandate, and people struggle to use them. and very often they abandon them and go and find a consumer application and run it on their phone instead. And that's great in a way for the individuals. They get their jobs done, and that's all fine. But it's normally very poor for the company as a whole, because they lose control over the data. They lose control over if somebody leaves the company, for example, then it's very difficult to know what data they've taken with them and what they've left behind. They could be in chat groups. They may not even know what chat groups they're in. It's a consumer application. You can't even get them out, even if you knew they were there. So many problems with people using their own tech, particularly consumer tech. So really, the question we have is, what if there was a solution that was just as effective for the end user, so just as easy to use as WhatsApp, for example, but on the other hand, gave the IT department and the company centralized control over accounts and data, so it was manageable, it was reliable, and it was secure. And that's what we do at Starleaf. So we're here to produce something which is ultimately absolutely usable, that everybody in the organization can use, not just the hyper-intelligent knowledge workers, the whole company can use, while at the same time delivering reliability and security and essential central control of data, which is critical now in this era as it ever has been, to the management and the IT department.
That's great. And as you mentioned, you have an application that people can use, on a mobile device or on their PC. And you've also started to move the access to your services to now third-party devices, as you mentioned before. That's a little different than it was when you had started, when you were making your own devices. Give us a little bit of color around that, if you can.
Sure. We've followed that through to now have a wide range of services on the Starleaf Cloud, which mean that, as you say, you can access Starleaf from your mobile, from your PC, Windows or Mac, but also we've now supported the new range of Poly endpoints, the X30, X50, and 7500. And we have fantastic support for those. So it's possible to use entirely third-party hardware devices with Starleaf. And there's another option. It's possible just to take a Windows PC and turn that into a room system too. So we've got support for your mobile, we've got support for your desktop, and we've got support for your meeting room, whether it's on Poly hardware or on a Windows PC.
So what
a complete
you're
range of
essentially
activity.
What you're essentially saying is, no, it's fine, is that you are one of the few companies in the industry that are supporting the end user with no lock-in. So if the end user buys a piece of hardware and is using company A for collaboration, but you come along with better service, better price, better whatever, they don't have to rip out their gear and replace it. They can use an X30 or an X50 and on one day be on Zoom and on the next day be on Microsoft and on the next day be on Starleaf, which means, as it should be, these services can now compete based on feature, function, and service.
I think that's absolutely right, David. That's absolutely right, and I think that that flexibility, that degree of choice for the user is really important. I think that it's especially when you look at pandemic, a lot of companies have had to rush to deploy something in a hurry without really evaluating. Is it the right solution for them? Is this thing doing the right thing for us? Is it too complicated? Can our users understand it? And I think that giving them a chance to make those evaluations and then choose freely which cloud service they want to use, I think that's really important.
That's great. So if somebody watching this wants to find out more about Starleaf, to get more information or to reach out and ask you a question, what should they do? What's the right place for them to go, or what's the right action for them to take?
The absolute simple thing to do is to go to our website, starleaf.com, and browse away there. You can chat to us, you can call us on video, you can get hold of us in a million ways, but in every single one of them good.
Terrific. Mark, thank you very much for spending time with us today. Thank you very much for the support you gave our industry during this pandemic, because it's been invaluable. Let's all hope that it ends soon, but when it ends, people realize just how functional these collaboration tools and your collaboration platform are, and we always move forward, all boats rising with the tide.
Thank you. That's very kind, David. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's great to hang out with you again. You don't look a day older than you were when I saw you last a few years ago. So it's got a thing. I guess perhaps
Well,
videos keeping us both young.
yeah, the gray is hereditary. You get it from your kids, but the beard is the only thing that I still dye every once in a while. Try and look a little bit young. Mark, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and we'll hopefully see you soon. Someday we'll go back to an industry conference and shake hands or bump fists again.
That'd be brilliant. Thank you very much.
Well, my guest now is my good friend Krish Ramakrishnan. He's one of the co-founders of the Blue Jeans Company, now, of course, Blue Jeans by Verizon. Krish, welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, David. Always a pleasure to be with you. We go a long way, way back when the industry
Absolutely
barely existed.
I was just thinking, it isn't, I don't throw compliments around very easily or very quickly, but it was 10 years ago, roughly, that you and I were sitting on a rainy day. I think it was in a hotel lobby or a meeting room, a building lobby, and you were telling me about, with a little sketch pad, your vision of how collaboration was going to work, where it wasn't going to be companies on islands anymore, that everybody was going to just be able to connect. And that was a very radical thing at the time. And now, 10 years later, it's almost the de facto standard if everybody meets in the cloud and has meetings. That was quite a vision that you had back then.
It's surprising that it is 10 years ago. We started the company around 2009, and at that time there were two groundbreaking ideas that we talked about. One is this notion of a cloud-based video solution where people were saying, hey, what is cloud? And then on top of that, can video be processed in the cloud? In those days, people were using expensive hardware on-prem. The second groundbreaking idea that Blue Jeans had was this notion of interoperability. How can all of the different equipment talk to each other? Video formats talk to each other. Never been done in video. It worked unlike a telephone. What Blue Jeans wanted was to make it look like a telephone interoperability. I think today, we have succeeded in that video interoperability. We are still the pioneers in that, but we have expanded beyond that. And I would say, as an industry, David, you and I have been talking about this, the entire COVID crisis, the video conferencing and collaboration industry have really came through loud and clear, helped the world, and put forth a technology that people are going to be using for years and decades to come.
Yeah, we've had this conversation before. It's I call it the horrible perfect storm. There's so much misery, so many deaths, so many people impacted by this awful, horrific pandemic, but it was the nudge that the collaboration industry needed to get past all of the misinformation about scapegoating remote employees, about lazy people that don't go into the office. We've now learned that all the studies and all the research that was done about this was true, that people are more productive, knowledge workers, when they don't have to commute, when they don't have to travel, that you can use video and other collaboration technologies to really, replace a lot of that in-office experience, not all of it. And we've actually also uncovered some weaknesses in the model. When you're doing video all the time, you're easily getting great top-down messages from company culture, but you're not getting that camaraderie generically. It has to be something that you cultivate and build. So tell me a little bit about Blue Jeans' experience during this pandemic, the massive scale, the lessons you've learned, maybe if you've got a story or two about people or organizations that you've helped through it.
Yeah. One of the things that you touched upon on the video side is there's always this perception people who work from home are not as productive, right? And that has proven wrong time and time and again. There's people are always coming back and echoing, hey, this has been the best scenario for really being productive. So all in all, the industry turned on a dime. I remember this very carefully. March 3rd, I was on a flight and I was in Chicago at the transition terminal. I got a call from one of our best customers, largest customer, and said, next week we are shutting down. Is Blue Jeans prepared to take in all calls from the billion minutes they do? We don't know where it's going to go. Is Blue Jeans going to be ready? And I said yes, without even thinking about it, and placed a call to my ops guy and said, get ready. But what I didn't know was in the next 3 days, four of our largest customers, and as you know, Blue Jeans sells to the largest industrials, the social media network, the biggest customer. All of them called and said, yeah, we are shutting down simultaneously. There goes your statistical multiplexing out the window. Everybody needed guaranteed bandwidth, guaranteed resolution, and our usage skyrocketed 8x in a matter of a week. And the only way we did it is because of a dedicated team and all the architecture improvements we have done to scale the system. And what is interesting about this is it hasn't come down. The peak is still going. That is amazing. People are talking about returning to work, but that's not happening. More and more people are discovering new use cases to work from home, new use cases of video. This is it. This basically replaces audio conferencing. Done.
Yeah, and it's interesting that that there was a lot of FUD being thrown around in the earliest days of March when the pandemic hit, and there were a lot of issues and a lot of fear and a lot of everything else. And I think, in all fairness, from my own personal perspective, I think just about every platform probably had a couple of hours one day that it had a hiccup. Just in the process of stressing out the system and getting everything going. I don't think anybody's exempt from that. That's across the board. But I am stunned as to how resilient all of the cloud platforms have been with this enormous increase in utilization. Again, we're living in a time where the high bandwidth broadband is available. It's still a privilege issue, but it's available in most homes, certainly for knowledge workers. People have a lot of cameras and headsets and collaboration equipment available, and it was the right time, the right place, the right moment. And you're right, the levels have not come down. If anything, they've continued to go up.
In fact, worldwide. So one of the things I would tell you is a little bit about Blue Jeans. We always created the platform for the enterprise and IT managers to roll out Blue Jeans at large scale with high quality, high degree of manageability and security. Imagine next week your entire population is not in campus, at home. Does that mean security goes away? Does that mean manageability goes away? All those things are now even more important because you have to make the video conference secure. You have to make sure that some of the things in terms of employee support has to be there. So we have a product called Command Center that helps with looking at the analytics and looking at where the troubles are. And one of the big things is that we introduced during our time was the Dolby noise cancellation. Guess what? When you work from home, that is even more important. The dog barks and the background noises and all these other things. So while we did not design our platform for work from home, it looked like we had all the features for work from home, and then we had to add a little more security features for like two-factor authentication. So today, when I look back, our product has improved and tenfold in terms of work from home features, lots of security, a lot of manageability, performance issues, and it's only getting better and better. So I know there are alternatives in the market, but we are holding on to our own in terms of our large Fortune 500 customers, social media platforms. And by the way, this is something that I wanted to share with you, after joining Verizon, our SMB business and our e-commerce business have taken off like gangbusters because Verizon sells into a lot of the SMBs.
Now, I don't want to dwell on that, but I certainly want to note it, and let you speak to it just for a moment, in that you are an organization that I don't want to use the term flippantly, but you are an organization that literally negotiated the sale of your organization during the pandemic entirely over video and remote tools. What was that like?
Yeah, talk about dog fooding. If you that's the ultimate dog food. When imagine the stakes here. You have an infrastructure that is being taxed to the max. in terms of every customer using video 24/7. Then you have a high stakes negotiation of a uh, big deal over
Millions,
video.
tens of millions,
Right.
hundreds of millions, a lot of money.
Right? So you're looking at that, and everybody's on video. And so your flaws, your goodness, everything is going to be amplified. And you're now talking about a deal, how and do all that. That was high stakes, and fortunately, our platform worked, everything worked, and we were able to negotiate and to prove that even large deals can be done over video. In our industry, it never happened. People always went to site visit. Due diligence was done remotely. All of the document exchange, all of the interviews, all of the vision slides, over a course of 3 months. This is all done during the height of the pandemic.
And at any moment in time, one of those calls might have crashed and ended the deal, because all of a sudden what they're buying didn't work. But,
Yeah.
again, it just is amazing how solid it was. So kudos to you
Yeah.
and your team. So
Yeah.
let's the theme of this episode is the other guys, because
Yeah.
we understand what happened with a lot of the bigger players, and they've become verbs, and they've been bragging about a lot of their legitimately on other services, a lot of the things that are being introduced. Talk right to the viewer of this webcast and tell them what's the differentiator for Blue Jeans by Verizon. Why you as opposed to anybody else?
I'll talk about a couple of points. Gartner itself has validated us as a visionary in this space. Right? And why? Because they look at our platform and said it's designed for enterprises and businesses to go full, right? It's designed with and manageability in mind. It is a very secure product. Security is very paramount, as you can see all the bombings that happen. Security is very paramount and very easy to manage. And overall, the video quality is very good and it's interoperable. So when you want the product to work with other video products, when you want it to be secure and manageable and easy to use, that's Blue Jeans. And that's how I named the company, Blue Jeans. It wanted to be easy as putting on a pair of jeans. So we lived true to that name and kept that name, Blue Jeans by Verizon, for that reason.
And that's the name ongoing?
That's the name ongoing. So you go and you Google Blue Jeans by Verizon, they like the brand and the ease of use. And so we are you raised this segment as the other guys. We are the challengers. We are the challengers in the industry, and I believe we have a better product than some of the in certain core areas. And in fact, our events product is one of the best in the industry, if not the leading one. I believe as a challenger, you can always count on us for innovation, leading the market, and taking into a direction people haven't imagined. So there's so many things that Verizon is investing us on in terms of roadmap. I would say the 10 years actually been Blue Jeans 1.0. Blue Jeans by Verizon in the next 1 year will compress all the developments we have done in the last 10 years, like network integration, 4K video, mobile edge computing, all these different things that only when you marry to a network provider you can actually do. After all, video needs a good network.
It's a great marriage. Great that it's all working together. I'm curious if you've seen some of the things that I've heard from some of the end users in the industry about how change control is probably going to change. As we roll out video, and you've experienced this over your years in the industry, as have I, a lot of large enterprises will do these gradual rollouts, a proof of concept, and then one group, and then the next group, and so on. And when we had this pandemic, and you got those phone calls, and I got those phone calls about, all right, our entire campus, our hundreds of thousands of people are now going to be remote on a dime, and they were essentially thrown in, to the deep end of the pool with no change control. And when I asked a lot of end users, what's your experience been? I was baiting them to tell me about all the horror stories. They essentially came back and said, you know what? Kind of worked everywhere. that there haven't really been any big issues. And I think we have forever changed this concept of the gradual proof of concept and change control around rollout of video. I think we're going to see these platforms essentially somebody flick the switch on as they go into an enterprise. Has that been your experience talking to end users as well?
The initial idea is how do we get communication, video communication to work by any means necessary? So that means companies relax their compliance requirement, their control requirement, all of their policies. They're all coming back. You cannot sustain an industry without compliance, especially in financial, industrials, and all these things. Now that everybody can use video conferencing, people are using BlueJeans tools such as Command Center to actually look at compliance. So it is going from communication to collaboration effectively. So that's what companies are looking at. Is my employee population working effectively? What other tools they need to work from home? So the crisis from working from home and enabling the technology, that is over. Now, how do you sustain it for the long haul?
How do you put in correct governance? How do you add the appropriate tools like cameras or audio devices or whatever? How do we go from just barely coping and being able to get by to now let's make this work for the long run? Exactly. And society will change as well. You're going to see people who have workstations built into their home from now on, as opposed to from a bedroom or a kitchen or something.
Exactly. Think about it, employee onboarding. On the first day, everybody goes to a conference room, they spend 8 hours thinking about, and getting the second day, they get their laptop and need to configure it, and you have an IT guy. All that has to be done virtual and in compliance.
Yep.
So many things have changed, and the industry is just now catching up to that aspect of even when you let employees go, how do you repossess the laptop, wipe out things from there? There's so many things to be taken care of that, yes, that's the second innings.
We've learned a new skill and it's a new phase of everything. Very, very good. So as we close this out, how do people reach out to you personally? How do people reach out to BlueJeans? How do people find out more? Where should they go? What should they do?
I think the website is still bluejeans.com. That's always the best place to go and get the latest information there. You can also navigate through the Verizon website with under Verizon Business. But as the founder and the chief strategy officer, as well as somebody who has sold a lot of customers, I'm still the best place to get the contact. The buck stops here for most of my customers, so it's Christian on bluejeans.com.
That's great. And you're one of the few founders and chief strategy officers that when I do send an email, I get a response within an hour or two. So like me, you're only as good as how you follow up with people. Krish, it's always a pleasure to chat with you. It's always a pleasure to hear what's going on with BlueJeans by Verizon. I'm hoping we'll hear some cool new announcements and you guys will start to kick out some really interesting new features. Again, I hope someday we'll be able to get out of here and, fist bump or shake hands again and see each other in person. The way it's looking right now, that's probably not going to be until mid to late 2021. But for now, as I said, it's a pleasure. Thanks very much for joining me on this one.
Yeah, David, thank you for inviting me. You are one of the pioneers of this industry. And you have seen it even before I entered. You had 10 solid years before that. So you're seeing from the day of the dawn. And now you must be a happy camper to see this industry. And I believe the best days are still ahead for this industry. And I want to thank you on behalf of all video conferencing providers for being there and being the advocate.
Thank you very much. I printed up some I Was Right t-shirts, but my kids won't let me wear them. Take care, Krish. Thanks again.
Okay, bye-bye.
My next guest is my friend, the head of LogMeIn, Mark Strassman. Mark has been with that organization for 2 to 3 years now?
Yeah, just over 2 years.
So give everybody a little bit of history of who you are and what you've done in the industry, and then we can move on to talking about LogMeIn.
Yeah, thanks for having me, David. My name is Mark Strassman. I'm the General Manager of Unified Communications and Collaboration at LogMeIn. And before that, I was actually at Blue Jeans. I've been in collaboration in the education sector, been in the media entertainment industry at Autodesk and the industry a while, and been a remote employee for 20 or so years. So this is how I've been communicating for the past couple decades. So passionate about the space. Came to LogMeIn a couple of years ago because as I was looking at the industry and seeing all the different pieces of communication and collaboration coming together, I really saw that LogMeIn had all those pieces. They had just purchased GoTo with GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar and GoToTraining and OpenVoice from Citrix a couple of years before. They had purchased Jive, one of the fastest growing PBX in the cloud providers. They already had JoinMe and Grasshopper for telephony, and really came on board because the opportunity to bring these all together to provide any way for companies to communicate with customers or employees in a unified way was really exciting. So that's what we've been doing over the past couple of years.
And then we've been all moving along, in our remote lives and our collaboration lives, and then we got this once-in-a-lifetime COVID-19 pandemic. I've called it. And I spoke to you before the show as well. I called it the horrible or horrific perfect storm. So much death, so much misery, so many issues. But knowledge workers, for the most part, have been able to continue functioning and being productive using these tools. Tell me what happened, to LogMeIn and to the GoTo platform. I happen to know GoTo a little bit because my wife uses it for some early intervention work here in New Jersey. So
Okay.
it's I know you've been providing services to help the community and everything else. But in your own words, why don't you let us know what your experience was when this pandemic hit and what you guys have been doing to step up?
Yeah, well, certainly in mid-March when everyone started, working from home literally overnight, our usage went through the roof, right? 10 times our normal usage in some areas, especially on our video meetings product, GoToMeeting. However, Webinar, the business has, gone through the roof as well, as has GoToConnect, which is our UCC product that combines meetings and PBX and messages and the like as everyone is working from home. Overnight, as everyone started working from home, it was meetings. It was GoToMeeting. Everyone's saying we've got to have wall-to-wall meetings for everyone. So we have tens of billions of audio minutes. Now we have tens of millions of unique monthly users. It's just again the business and usage is booming. As everyone got their wall-to-wall meetings tool, going from kind of how do we survive, this pandemic and working from home, and people realize that, okay, this is working. We can work from home. A lot of companies have now been going, how do we, we will have more people working from home now. Hopefully even after the pandemic is gone, we'll have less office space. We will embrace remote work. And companies are really looking to LogMeIn to go from, surviving to thriving. How do we communicate with our customers and employees with telephony, with messaging? But beyond that, what's interesting about LogMeIn, as I said, I head up the Unified Communication Collaboration Group. We're in other businesses as well. We have a strong business in customer engagement, where we have an AI-powered multi-channel digital engagement platform, an AI chatbot, really built for better customer experiences. And as customers of companies aren't going into their offices to get work done, they're engaging on web and electronically, having this sort of an automated experience is important. That product is called Bold 360. As we have a product for supporting customers' desktops and supporting them from an IT perspective, we have a product called Rescue, and that's going through the roof. Additionally, we have remote desktop and support products like Central and Pro and GoToMyPC, so that IT supporting all their employees who are all remote, they need remote desktop for that. And lastly, we have a product called LastPass, which is about identity. It's about your digital identity and access protected anywhere you work and live. So as companies have all these digital resources that all their employees are accessing from home, they want them to do it in a secure way. So beyond just our UCC products going through the roof, GoToMeeting, GoToConnect, GoToWebinar, we're really putting all our products together into remote work kits. And before, we were really kind of selling all these different products in silos. What really ties them together is remote work. So we've donated almost $50 million in products to essential organizations around the globe across our portfolio. Almost 10,000 organizations have taken up our entire remote work kit to support the transition to remote work. And as we're moving forward, we're saying, yes, communication is an important part of it. But really, as we're looking to serve IT, it's how do all these different pieces fit together to serve IT with remote work?
Would you consider that to be your biggest differentiator for some of the other players that are in the collaboration space? The fact that you have all these other tools that support other functions and other remote worker supports?
It absolutely is a huge differentiator. We talk about unification, right? UCC, every year another kind of product gets added to the U in UCC. It, started out as messaging, and then was messaging and telephony, then was messaging and telephony and teleconferencing, and then added, PBX in the cloud, and now it's meetings. We have all those pieces, and we've got some special sauce there that I'm willing to talk about on the UCC side. That said, especially if you look at IT and, small, medium, mid-market businesses, they are looking to have a single set of administrative experiences, a single set of user experiences, and pull those together. So having all these different tools across an organization for remote work is a huge advantage we offer, and it's something we're building on.
Terrific. So have you made any product changes or platform changes or had to do any kind of shifting around in terms of resources in order to manage this surge as things have come up?
It's a great question. So, overnight when usage went, through the roof 10 plus times, we were actually in a good place. We were already multi-tenant. We were already had our own data centers and able to surge to, AWS and Azure and others. We already had redundant network providers. So, as some of the network providers went down, we were able to switch over there. So we were in a good place. In fact, we look on Down Detector, how we compare with, Zoom and Teams and others. We've had 10 times fewer incidents than some of our competitors there because we were already set up in a flexible, scalable sort of a way. Additionally, things we look at, we've seen a bunch of players in the space kind of scramble to make sure they get the right encryption and that they don't have meeting screen sharing open to everyone to get sort of the meeting bombing. Those are features we already had. We already had secure encryption based out of the US. We already had as a default meeting passwords. We already had as a default just the organizer has screen sharing. You can change those and open it to everyone. But as some others scrambled to kind of change their meeting defaults from more open to more secure, we had already erred on the secure side, and that was really important to us. At the same time, we've made smaller changes, such as meeting locks, where a couple, places down in the interface, we move them to the top of the interface as that's become really important to users. We just rolled out a whole new user experience about a year ago, which was pretty much all the way rolled out on GoToMeeting before COVID hit. So that's been rolled out to our entire base, and that's really a video-first experience as opposed to the older GoToMeeting that was really more about screen sharing. Now it's really kind of video-first, so that's rolled out. I would say other areas we've been kind of moving forward on and making changes on. One are things like webinar. Again, webinar product, we still have the leading webinar product in the space. And again, that is one of our fastest growing products as all events, as all hands, as even trainings have gone through the roof. So, for smaller organizations, we've added things like the ability to accept payments. So for, people who are running classes or, generally have smaller events where they charge at the door, we can actually, allow customers right in the product to take money. For larger events,
it's a big differentiator. I've heard from a number of small businesses that wanted to start things up and were looking for a third party. So, I didn't even know that. That's good to know that that's something that you support.
Yeah, so you can do it right in the product. That's important. We've really beefed up security. We've added the ability to turn on CAPTCHA for registration. We had people who are running big events with, thousands, tens of thousands of people. They're advertising it on social media, and the bots hit the registration. So we can turn on CAPTCHA. We have risk-based authentication. So we can look at, hey, if we see one region that's not normally signing up for events or for meetings coming in and hitting it hard, we can actually turn that area off. So a lot of things around kind of authentication that are important to us. We've done a lot on the rooms front as well. We came out with our Go-to-Room product a couple of years ago, and as opposed to some of the other products in the space that are based on Mac or PC, we go for the kind of the appliance model. So, our first products we supported were from Poly. We also support products from Logitech and Dolby, where you just plug it in and it works. We support, so we've had a lot of different kits. We support a room as a service model. So instead of buying the hardware is capital expense. People can spend, a couple $100 a month. One of the bigger differentiators we've added as, we've gone into this pandemic, people use all different services. They use GoToMeeting, they use Zoom, they use Teams, they use WebEx. You've got to be ready for a call from anyone. So we've specifically supported and added the functionality to support joining a meeting on GoToRoom on any service. So we'll connect your calendar. We'll see if there's a Zoom meeting. We'll see if there's a GoToMeeting. We'll see if there's a WebEx meeting, a BlueJeans meeting, and we will join that right in the GoToRoom experience. And while the first month or so during the pandemic, rooms sales slowed down considerably, now that people are both going back to the office and are setting up their home offices, we are seeing a big resurgence in rooms. In that, previous to the pandemic, it was generally, 10 people in a meeting in the office and one person was generally me dialing in, and I was the oddball. Now it's the other way around. You've got 1 or 2 people in the office and 10 people dialing in, and video is on all the time. So rooms have become a different experience, but just as important. So we continue to kind of change our roadmap and make changes due to the pandemic.
Well, it's interesting that it's a culture change in that people who have worked from home are doing well. People who thought, hey, we're stuck here for a month, we're quarantined, I've got my PC, I've got my tablet, I've got my earbuds, 1 month leads to 2, leads to 3, leads to 4. People are going to start to say, you know what, I need a dedicated space where I live. Maybe we should be moving. I need dedicated equipment to be doing better. And the people that are going back to the office in this hybrid model, which we're going to be in for a long time, the majority of people going into the office are going in for collaborative reasons. They're not going to do individual work because they can do it at home. So I expect that we're going to, we haven't seen the beginning of the surge that we're going to have for all these collaborative products. And, whether it's, collaboration rooms in offices that are going to hold, more people spaced out or less people in a bigger room spaced out, and at home permanent offices, I think we're just starting to hit this. Oh my God, we really need to kick it into gear phase. Exactly
right. One of our products that we've made a lot of changes to, and we've seen, business double, is our GoToConnect product, and that is our PBX in the cloud product that has integrated GoToMeeting, integrated messaging, integrated SMS, fax, all these sort of things that you expect out of a PBX in the cloud product. Again, the first month or so after the pandemic, people who are replacing their closet, on-prem PBXs, things stopped for a while. And now the business is really picking up where everyone's saying, okay, we are not going to be going back to our offices. We don't want to be going where we have to maintain, on-prem equipment. We are seeing the use of soft phones as opposed to desk phones kind of go through the roof as people are working from home. And I would say another differentiator of our platform, and specifically of GoToConnect, is we have a built-in contact center. And, whereas huge organizations that have big call centers have, Genesys, Five9s, those kind of large support centers or contact center solutions, we have built an add-on to GoToConnect that has a support and sales contact center where, instead of paying hundreds of dollars a month, you can pay, dozens of dollars a month. And you can deploy in just a day to really democratize the call center. So as everyone is at home, for smaller organizations, answering customer calls, answering supports calls, you need to be able to track those. You're not all in the same room. You need someone to say how long have people been on hold. You need to figure out how you route calls based on, skills-based routing. You need to look at analytics on how long your customers were on hold. So our contact center is really just going through the roof in terms of people want something in a democratized way that they can afford, that they can deploy quickly to support their customers when they're not willing to go through a deployment of one of these larger tools. So that's been a real interesting differentiator too.
No, that's all amazing, and it's a great story. And I hope people watch this and really get the idea of helping get that message out that it's so much more than just a go-to platform. You guys are offering tremendous numbers of powerful tools to be able to bring everything together and playing nicely with your peers. So, I mean, those are, I think, really big differentiators in the space. If you look at the industry conferences that someday, hopefully I'll see you again at an industry conference if we ever go to them again. We're at a point now where things have been postponed all the way through till April. That's 7 or 8 more months from now as we record this. We're going to be in this for the long haul. And I think you're going to start to see a continued surge and uptick in people starting to look for and using these tools. Is that what your data says? Do you think that you're continuing to go up this hockey stick around collaboration and remote tools?
Absolutely. Heading up our UCC business, I spend half my time meeting with our customers and listening to them and hearing what their needs are and what they're doing. And, first of all of them are saying, yes, we are sending a few people back to the office as needed, but everyone is questioning what the future looks like. Everyone is questioning the spend on their physical space and what they need. Everyone is saying, how do we look at a complete set of processes, of tools, of having a deliberate culture to embrace work from home so that we can hire the best employees wherever they are and provide a toolkit to enable them to get their work done. And yes, that's communications tools, but it's also tools on identity, it's tools on security, it's tools on how we support customers and employees. And I think IT is really looking at this in a much more deliberate way than they were in the past, where, yes, we'll give a few people tools as they work from home or they talk to customers. So people are looking at it a lot more deliberately, and they are questioning what work from home means. It's not a bunch of slackers who don't feel like coming to the office. Everyone realizes now that we can get a lot of work done, but we need to have a complete integrated set of tools to support our employees and customers. And this intention about remote work and providing the right environment, tools, and processes for remote work is just getting stronger. The lights come on for a lot of people now.
And it's also going to be a cultural shift in the concept of what a supervisor is and what a manager is. The old school, corporate manager that measures time by butts in seats and who's in and who's not in. That's essentially, the extinction of that is moving, thankfully, rapidly at this point now. We're going to be judging people based on their output, based on their productivity, based on what they've done. And if you've got somebody who works at 3 o'clock in the morning and that's when they get their work done, or if they've only had to put in 2 hours in a day and then they're off at a kid's school or at an event or having a picnic out on the back deck, that's going to be the way work is judged now, is based on output and based on performance. And you need the tools to be able to connect with people and see how they are emotionally, whether they're getting their work done. So I think we're going to have to get into this business of training the next generation of supervisor to get with these skills that a few supervisors have had in the market already. Global supervisors, people who've managed 24-hour teams. They've had to learn this. I mean, have you started to see inclination of that from some of your customers?
Absolutely. I think the least common denominator of a culture and management style was just being in the office. So you didn't have to be super deliberate about how you communicate with employees, or, some people were lazy about setting goals and KPIs because I'm standing over someone. If they're coming into the office and they have a question, they'll ask it. Now that they're not, people are realizing, managers are absolutely realizing that it's not butts in seats. It is, how do we measure performance based on goals and clear goals? And, I think for any manager or leader, it's obvious, and it is, it tends to be something to say, oh, of course I set goals. I think people are realizing that, setting, tracking goals is something that they didn't do well, and you have to now. Similarly with communications, where it's not just, you don't have that over-the-wall communications where everyone's in the loop. It's forcing managers and leaders to be explicit and specific and deliberate about how they communicate, both to their employees and how their employees communicate with each other. I think it's forcing a lot of, frankly, hygiene in terms of providing organizations that, don't manage in kind of the old ways, but really look to performance and how to best serve customers and employees.
Those are some great thoughts and some great revealing of some of the features that even I didn't know existed on the platform. If somebody wants to get more information, wants to reach out to you or reach out to your team, what would you suggest they do?
Yeah, you can go to goto.com is where you can find the information about our complete UCC platform, or just at goto on Twitter. So appreciate your time, David. It was great talking to you, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Again,
Great
hopefully in
seeing you
person,
again.
but
Hopefully, we'll be able to do these in-person things at some point in the future. But for now, at least we know we've got the tools. And I don't know about you, but I've been a third of my time crazy with work, a third of my time crazy with industry associations, and this new third of my time, which is all friends and relatives saying, "Don't you do this? How do I do this? How do I start this button? What do I download?" I'm essentially tech support for the house now, and probably for my entire community online.
Exactly right. Recommending headsets, people wanting discounts on poly equipment. How do you get it done? Yeah.
Hey, I love the headset you sent me. Do you have one for my wife? I'm actually shipping one out today. So yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much, Mark. Great seeing you.
Thank you. You too, David.
Well, thank you very much to my guests from Starleaf, from Blue Jeans by Verizon, and from LogMe and GoToMeeting. My name is David Danto for AVNation TV, for the IMCCA, and for all of the other various entities and organizations that I do business with. It's great to see you. It's great to be able to bring you this content. I hope to see you on the next one. Take care.